Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Friday, the 2nd of February. With McShane, we read Job chapter 1 and Romans chapter 5, and there's a link between them. In Romans, Paul talks about the glory we have in Christ and the hope of the glory of God, a hope for eternity. And then he says in verse 3, we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. We glory in our sufferings. And for Paul, suffering wasn't just not being invited to a dinner party. For him, that was being stoned or being beaten, being arrested and put in prison. That's his sufferings. And he says we can glory in that. And that's something in the West, in the 21st century, that we need to get our heads around. That sometimes we would believe, and there are voices out there that would have us believe, if you are blessed by God, you will have an easy life, you'll have an abundance, everything will be a bed of roses, it'll be wonderful, and there'll be absolutely no thorns. Paul says, no, we glory in our sufferings. And we see the same thing in Job, where he was abundantly blessed by God, and the devil says he's a good, faithful believer in God because of all he's got. And God says, well, okay, you can take it. So on a single day, he loses all his possessions, all his wealth, and his family. And as the news comes to Job, we're told that this Job got up, tore his robe, shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. What a perspective on life. And it's worth holding on to that. We brought nothing into the world, and we take nothing out of it. So anything that we have that is worldly is temporary, and that's worth bearing in mind. We have an eternity ahead of us. And so a human lifespan of 80 or 100 years, if you're particularly healthy, is of no consequence compared to eternity. And so we focus on eternity, and we recognize we leave everything behind ultimately. And as people of faith, we're very quick to say, God has blessed me. Look at all that God has given. We've received this from God. But we've challenged to say with Job, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. As we lose things, so often people say it's a disaster. We've lost, we're abandoned. And we need to recognize God is sovereign. God is working out his purposes for our good, for eternity. And he will give us things, and he can take things. And we fall back with Job. We say, may the name of the Lord be praised, because he is sovereign. Now, I recognize that for me, this is probably a bit of an intellectual exercise, because I've never suffered a great deal. The losses I've experienced have been minor. And I'm aware that there are people in the community and out there that have suffered great loss. And for them, it's a completely different picture. And how I would respond if I was in Job's position, would I say that I'd like to think, oh, of course I would, but I really don't know. Until the time comes, one doesn't know. One prays and says, God, keep me faithful. Keep me trusting in you. Keep me walking with you. Keep my eyes on you. But it's a word of encouragement for people in that position. It's not that God's abandoned you. One needs to have the perspective of Paul and of Job. God is in control. He gives, he takes away. I might be suffering, but I can glory in my sufferings. It's a challenge to do that. But if we're able to, I believe it'll make our situations so much easier, so much better. We will have so much more hope. We can actually be positive in those situations, not with a superficial positivity, but with an eternal assurance of salvation in Christ. Be encouraged by that thought and know that we're blessed.